Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a really fascinating stack of material today, all centered on, well, a potentially life-changing idea.
Yeah,
The science of actually changing your reality by changing your brain.
that's right.
So our mission here is to take all this research on neuroplasticity and really frame it as a practical guide. Let's call it Sculpting Your Mind for Abundance.
I like that framing, sculpting.
Yeah. Because the core idea is just so powerful, isn't it? What if things like success, happiness, even opportunity, what if they weren't just down to luck?
Uh-huh.
What if they're actually a result of the pathways, the connections you consciously build in your brain?
Exactly. We're talking about shifting habits, maybe boosting creativity, all by understanding how your own mind works.
That's the potential we really want to unpack today, this sort of untapped superpower.
Yeah, and for a long time, the prevailing scientific view was that the adult brain was pretty much fixed, like a finished sculpture, especially after your early 20s maybe.
Right, that was the old thinking.
But the research we're looking at today just completely flips that on its head. We now see the brain as dynamic, constantly changing, a masterpiece, always in progress, you could say.
Hmm.
And the really profound thing for you, listening, is that you're not just living in that mental landscape. You get to be the sculptor, the architect.
You're moving from being a passive observer of your thoughts.
Exactly, to being an intentional designer. Neuroplasticity confirms we can actually deliberately drive growth throughout our lives. It's empowering.
Okay, so let's get down to basics then. Neuroplasticity. What is it, fundamentally?
Simply put, it's the brain's, well, remarkable ability to reorganize itself. It does this by forming new connections between neurons throughout your entire life.
Like the brain's operating system constantly updating itself based on input.
Precisely. And that update mechanism doesn't shut off. We really need to hammer home that myth-busting point. The sources are absolutely clear. Your brain is not set in stone after childhood.
It keeps adapting.
It keeps adapting. It's a lifelong process, continuous refinement. You learn something new when you're 80. Your brain is physically changing in response.
Which opens up huge possibilities for, like, personal optimization, right?
Huge.
You can deliberately train your brain to work better for your current goals instead of just running on old programming from, I don't know, childhood or past experiences.
Exactly. Moving beyond those default settings.
So let's make that connection clearer. How does this amazing ability link specifically to abundance or success? We talk about mindset a lot,
Right.
but how does a negative thought pattern, like a scarcity mindset, actually show up as a physical limitation in the brain?
Okay, so it comes down to efficiency. The brain loves efficiency. When you repeatedly think a negative thought, let's say, oh, I could never do that, you're physically strengthening the neural circuit for that belief.
You're paving that road, basically.
You are. The sources call these scarcity loops, and it relates to that famous saying in neuroscience, neurons that fire together wire together.
Hebbian learning.
That's the one. Every time you run that scarcity loop, that negative thought, you make the connection stronger, maybe even faster, more automatic.
Okay.
And the flip side, of course, are the routes we can build intentionally through optimism, through growth-oriented thinking. Those are the prosperity pathways.
That makes so much sense. It takes it from abstract self-help ideas to actual, like, neurological engineering.
Yeah.
You're not just wishing for something.
No, you're literally upgrading the infrastructure.
Did the sources mention specific brain areas involved in making that shift? You know, from the scarcity loops to the prosperity pathways?
They did, yeah. Building those prosperity pathways often means consciously using the prefrontal cortex, your PFC. That's the bit involved in planning, decision-making, rational thought.
The thinking part.
The thinking part, exactly. You use it to override the more reactive parts, like the limbic system, especially the amygdala, the fear center.
So choosing possibility over fear is literally like forcing the PFC to build a new road.
That's a great way to put it. A better road for processing information, one that leads away from knee-jerk fear or limitation.
And this isn't just theory. The sources mention real-world examples, right?
Yeah.
Case studies.
Absolutely. People who've demonstrably shifted their reality financially, creatively, personally, just by focusing on this rewiring process. It really underscores that this takes deliberate action.
Okay, perfect segue. Let's talk about the practical side. If we're the architects, what are our tools? How do we actually start this transformation?
Well, the sources group the strategies into three main areas, kind of moving from internal work to external action. First up is mindful reprogramming.
Which isn't just chilling out, right?
Not at all. It's active brain training. Things like daily meditation, visualization. You're actively forging those new neural connections you want.
So visualization isn't just daydreaming.
Definitely not. Think of it as neurological rehearsal. You're practicing the skill, the feeling, the outcome you want, strengthening that specific pathway before you even act in the real world.
How much practice are we talking?
The sources suggest even 5 or 10 minutes of really intense, focused mental rehearsal can be incredibly effective.
Okay, that sounds manageable. What's the second category?
The second one is great. Skill building for brain growth. Basically challenging your brain to adapt.
Like learning a language or an instrument.
Exactly. Or tackling complex puzzles. Anything that forces your brain out of its comfort zone. It's crucial for building an abundant brain because it boosts cognitive flexibility.
How does that work physically?
When you learn something complex, you stimulate the growth of dendrites. Those are the little branches on your neurons. More branches mean more connections, more density in your neural network.
So more connections equals more mental resources, more resilience.
You got it. An abundance of connections.
Okay, but hang on. If the brain loves efficiency, like you said, doesn't it resist change? There must be some kind of neurological inertia we have to push against. Did the sources talk about that?
That's a really important point. Yes, the brain resists because those old pathways are, well, energy efficient. They're familiar territory.
Makes sense.
And that's where the third category is key. Behavioral shifts.
Yeah.
The sources emphasize that you don't need some massive life overhaul to start overcoming that inertia. Small, consistent actions are the secret.
Small actions, like what?
Tiny things, almost negligible, like deciding to walk a different route home from work.
Yeah.
Or making a point to smile at 3 strangers during your day.
Really? That's enough.
It's enough to force the brain to fire just a little differently. Do these small, deliberate shifts consistently, and they compound. Over time, they literally alter the brain's structure.
Wow.
It's about making the new path slightly easier to take each day. Eventually, that old scarcity loop just kind of withers from lack of use.
So the big takeaway here is that transformation isn't passive. You have to actively engage, right? Give the brain directions.
Absolutely. Conscious commitment is required.
All right, let's dive into some specific techniques the sources highlight for really cultivating this abundant self. Gratitude comes up a lot. We hear about it all the time. But what's the actual neurological reason? It's a tool for neuroplasticity. Why does it work?
It's much more than just feeling good, although that's nice too. It's a direct way to tweak your brain's neurochemistry, specifically the happiness and reward systems, dopamine, serotonin pathways.
How?
Well, when you regularly express thanks, maybe journaling it, maybe just consciously thinking it, you actively stimulate and reshape those reward circuits.
Okay.
By focusing on what's positive, you reinforce the brain circuits tied to satisfaction, to well-being. You're essentially training your brain to notice and expect positive outcomes more often.
So those prosperity pathways become the default setting for how you interpret things.
That's the goal, yes. It shifts where your brain naturally puts its attention.
Building on that positive focus, the next big piece seems to be tackling the negative stuff directly, those old mental scripts.
Yeah, that's crucial.
The sources talk about identifying and consciously challenging that ingrained negative self-talk. That sounds like hard work.
It can be, yes. It's the mental labor of dismantling limiting stories we tell ourselves.
Because if you keep running a story like, I'm not capable or I don't deserve this,
You're just reinforcing that scarcity loop, making the belief stronger and more automatic each time. The work is noticing that loop start up.
catching it in the act.
Exactly. Interrupting it, and then consciously, deliberately replacing it with a more empowering narrative. It takes effort, but that effort is what physically breaks the old pattern.
Okay, so we focus on gratitude. We challenge the negative. What's the third cornerstone the sources mention for this abundant self?
It's about building resilience. Because abundance isn't about never facing problems, right? It's about how effectively you handle them when they arise.
And neuroplasticity helps with that.
Directly. The sources link resilience to improved cognitive flexibility, we talked about that, and also a reduced chronic stress response.
Managing stress better.
Yes, using techniques like visualization or mindfulness helps train your brain to regulate stress hormones, like cortisol, more effectively during tough times.
So you bounce back faster.
Bounce back stronger, maintain perspective. That ability is maybe the most practical outcome of long-term neuroplastic change.
Right.
It keeps you moving forward.
Right. Okay, let's try and pull this all together. This whole journey of neuroplasticity. It sounds like it's not a one-and-done fix. It's continuous.
It absolutely is. You're constantly tending to your mental garden, so to speak, involving the environment. But the core message here, I think, is real empowerment through understanding, Now, you know you have this fundamental power to shape your own mind, your own destiny, through deliberate, conscious action.
Because the brain is always listening, always adapting to the input you give it.
Always. It's ready for your instructions.
So what about immediate next steps? For someone listening right now wanting to start, the sources suggested starting small, right?
Definitely. Start incredibly small.
Mm.
Consistency beats intensity here. Remember those micro-behavioral shifts? They add up to macro-level change.
So what's a good first step?
Maybe begin with just 5 minutes of visualizing a goal as already achieved. Really focus on the details, the feelings. Or, simpler still, catch one piece of negative self-talk today. Just one. Interrupt it. Replace it with 3 positive, realistic counterstatements.
The act of doing it is the transformation itself.
Precisely. The deliberate act is the physical change beginning.
Okay, so if our thoughts really do physically build our future, here's the final thought we want to leave you with today. What's one significant scarcity loop? One recurring negative thought pattern that you can choose to stop feeding, stop reinforcing, just for the next 24 hours.
Good challenge.
And just as importantly, what new prosperity pathway, what positive, empowering thought or action will you choose to start building, even in a tiny way, in its place? The choice, as we've seen, is yours, and the power to change, it's already wired into your mind.